City Council meeting, 10 a.m. Monday, June 28th, 2021, City Hall Complex. I call this meeting to order. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. Madam Clerk, will you please?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Number 3, public hearing. We'll open up for public hearing on final budget for fiscal year 2021-2022.
Look outside.
Yeah, look outside, see if there's anybody there. Mr.
Fuentes was not there, and I thought maybe, but he said.
No. Okay, we don't have anybody? Nobody here? Okay. All right, so I guess we'll close the public hearing now. And we'll go to 4 orders. Number 1, consideration possible action of order 2021-06-031, an order of the Council of the City of Nogales, Arizona, adopting the official final budget for fiscal year 2021-2022 as presented. Finance, John?
Yes, sir. Pat was going to join us, but I think she might be having some technical difficulties getting on with us, Mr. Mayor, to present you this year's final budget. You all received email copies in your copies today. Do you know where Pat might be at? She has a presentation she wanted to go over.
Yeah, I just handed out the presentation.
She's on the phone now. She might be having difficulty. Let me figure it out.
All right.
If you don't mind. We're ready. Let me send another one. Hold on. I'm sending it to the AOL one. Okay.
Is she here at City Hall?
Huh?
Is she here at City Hall?
No. No. That's the email stuff.
Is it at her end or is it our end? Problem.
I don't know, Mr. Mayor.
Jean, can't you do the presentation?
I can sure. Oh, there she is. I was gonna say, sure, I can try.
Welcome, Pat. You just need to unmute your mic if you can hear me.
Sorry, wasn't able to get signed on.
It happens.
Okay.
Pat, the mayor has recognized you to do the presentation on the 21-22 final budget.
Okay. Let me share my screen then. Can you see the presentation?
It just needs to be enlarged, Pat.
Okay, I think I pulled the wrong one up.
No, wait, that might be me, hold on, let me see if I can do something. We got it, but it's kind of small. But they also have it in hard copy, so you're good to go. They can read their hard copy as we go through it.
Okay. It's showing large on my screen. Sorry about that.
It's probably my end, Pat.
Okay. All right, we're going to talk about the overview of the entire 21-22 proposed budget, highlights of the fiscal year 2021-22 budget. Then we'll end it with questions and wrap up. So is this the public hearing then, Mayor?
No,
We
we opened it up and closed it. Nobody was here to discuss anything.
Okay. All right, so the general fund total now has gone down a little bit. It's down to $82,744,639. And the reason for the change from the tentative to the final was that the overall total budget decreased by $24,073. Remember, we said that the ceiling was set with the tentative, but you could go down with the final. And the reason that we had changes, and we had up and down in each department and each of the funds, primarily was a result of the compensation study. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about that, the details of that, but that was implemented, and when it was overall calculated with benefits, and there were some vacant positions, and people had changed positions, it was overall decreases and increases in all the funds. So as a result of salaries going up in some of these water, wastewater, sanitation, fleet and public works, which are funded by the other funds, meaning indirect cost allocations, those all had to be recalculated too. So it wasn't just a simple shift of the numbers, there was a lot of changes that had to go with it in calculating everything. The end result though is that the actual cost of the compensation study was $717,208. And that was much less than what we anticipated to be. The general fund, we put in $500,000, if you recall, in the contingency reserve, and it came in at $401,391 with benefits. So our total general fund revenues, the budget is 25.6, and with the carry forward, the total budget in the general fund is $36,033,910. As we mentioned in the tentative budget, total capital expenditures that are included in the budget is $3,833,866. There were some positions unfrozen in the police department, 4 police officers, communication, lieutenant corporal, and we added 3 new police officer positions to be paid for through the CASA Head grant. You also unfroze economic development analyst, senior engineer, library assistant, and a new position was added for the fire inspector part-time. We also added a position for the groundskeeper for the parks department and 2 groundskeepers for the cemetery. And then the council made the decision to go ahead and purchase outright vehicles versus leasing and save about $55,000 by doing that. The contingency reserve, the amount that we set aside, which is about 3 months worth of operating expenses, that changed a little bit because of the movement back and forth of the compensation study and the allocations, but you still have $6,365,370. And we still have in the reserve Chase Bank improvement of $2 million reserve, and then the compensation study was distributed to each fund. The bottom line again, just to kind of recap, the general fund balance estimated, should say 6/30/21, beginning fund balance for 21 was 15 million. When you look at the general funds estimated or general fund expenditures estimated, we're going to bring in another 2,997,803, primarily because of the CARES Act money. And the total estimated fund balance is 18,662,000, or fiscal year 22 beginning fund balance. So the ending fund balance for fiscal year 21, June 30th, is the beginning fund balance for fiscal year 21-22. So the bottom line, and put the total amount in there. The fund balance used for the general fund, and I must have got distracted on that one, is $10,448,170. So let me put that number in there. Well, it won't let me edit it. I'll edit it back. But that number should be $10,448,170, leaving a balance of $8,314,281, not appropriated anywhere. If you don't spend the contingency reserve of $6,365,370, you'll have a total amount of dollars of general fund balance of $14,679,651. That's all good news. The only thing that I will caution council on is based on a webinar I attended last week with the league. The budget was passed with the flat tax in it. However, they did agree to move the percentage up of distribution to cities and towns to 18%. The problem with that is that we're not sure if that truly is going to be revenue neutral for all the cities and towns, mainly because of the fact that they didn't have numbers to really work with. They didn't talk about, at least on the state level, how they got to those numbers. So it's just the best guess that the league could put in at this point in time. There will still be a hit for unemployment to our state income tax, so we might see a little bit of a decline, but that's even more reason why I'm very glad to see the council's keeping aside that additional $8 million in a reserve in the event something would happen in 23, 24, 25. So with that, I'll turn it over to the council if they have any questions.
Is there any questions? Go ahead, Councilman.
On the bottom line, where you say if you don't spend
Mike, turn your mic on.
that, Councilman Bojorquez, on the bottom line, you said if you don't spend the contingency reserve of $6,365,370, you'll have $14,679,651. Is that you're forecasting in case of an emergency, we don't spend that money?
Yes, Mayor and Council, that is. It's for an emergency in the event that you would have some type of emergency expenditure, or in the event that something would happen and the economy go the other way, let's say a resurgence of COVID-19, knock on wood, it doesn't happen, but then you'd have a revenue shortfall. You could use the contingency to bridge that gap.
Okay. And my other question, I was going through the budget, and I was looking at the payroll schedules, and I looked at the salaries for 2019 and 2020. Let's see, I'm looking at and I noticed that for, let's see, for some of the most of the salaries, they went up. That wasn't so in the tentative, so I noticed that difference.
Mayor and members of the council, we had the $500,000 in the contingency for the general fund, and we had contingency reserve in the other funds. And so after the adoption of the tentative budget, we moved that contingency money for the compensation study and for the 2% to bring everybody up to the minimum. And then we wanted to give a 2% to bring people between the minimum and the midpoint. And so then that was distributed, and that would cause salaries to go up. And whenever you raise wages, your retirement goes up, your FICA goes up. There's a lot of different things that go up. So it's both increases in salary and increases in benefits.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you.
Is there anybody else? Councilman?
Just, Councilman Maldonado, Pat, I was just noticing, there's some that go up, 8,000, 9,000, and others that go up, I took it as the 2% that we had agreed, which is a couple $100 or, in the low thousands. But how come we have some that go up, $8,000, $9,000?
Mayor and members of the council, this is because of the market study the compensation study that was performed by an outside consulting firm, the public sector consulting firm, and it was totally objective, and they just looked at positions with the same job responsibilities and duties of what's in the market. And they then set the ranges between minimum, midpoint, and maximum. And so what you see there is some people were way behind. What that says, if they've got a large increase, it means they were either not at the minimum, or they were at the minimum and they really should have been probably closer to the midpoint. So you take a percentage on a large salary, it's going to be more, like a 1% 100,000 is a lot more than 1% on 50,000. So it looks like a large amount, but percentage-wise, it's not that much overall. And it just goes to show how far behind some of these salaries were.
Okay.
Anybody else?
Yeah, Pat, also on some of the payroll schedules, on the salaries and wages, you have fiscal year 2019 and 2020, and then on the proposed, you have 2020 and 2021. Is that a typo?
I would ask Jean that. I don't have them in front of me. So
Well, I'm looking at the library schedules.
It's a type.
It's a typo.
The typos will get them corrected.
Okay.
That's okay.
Thank you.
Go ahead.
Good morning, Mrs. Walker. This is Lisa Montiel. Can you briefly tell the city of Nogales how the federal COVID-19 recovery funds, which is the American Rescue Plan funds, will be spent at the city of Nogales, please?
John, could you repeat the question? I could not hear it.
Sure. How are we budgeting to spend the COVID funds that we're receiving, Pat?
The ones that we received from the CARES Act, or the
That's-
ones that we're
the
going to receive from the relief?
The relief,
funds?
the American relief funds.
The American
Mrs.
Relief
Walker.
Funds, Pat.
That is going to be used to pay for the PSPRS contributions of police and fire. It doesn't cover it all, but it takes a big chunk of it out, 3.3 million. We owe about 4 million every year on that.
So the entire amount will be spent for this allocation that you just mentioned, the fire and police?
Yes, and that frees up money in the general fund then, which we use to fund other things. The capital budget, the 3.8 million I mentioned, and salary, there's a lot of different things we use the money that was freed up for. But for a direct correlation of what you can spend that money on, we're paying for PSPRS, for fire and police, and that frees up the general fund. And that's how we get to be able to spend what we did in the budget, plus put that much reserve aside, the $8 million, plus the 6 million. So that's how we get to the 14 million overall.
Yeah. Yeah, I got that. I just wanted the city of Nogales people to see where these funds are going to be allocated towards, so they can see that. Another question is, can you briefly explain a little bit how the flat tax will affect the city of Nogales? I know you talked a little bit about it. I saw somewhere that it was allocated for the city of Nogales to lose about 7.8 million.
You see my slide?
Yeah, I do.
Okay, this was the estimates that we're giving, that I
Yeah.
gave back when we were doing the budget workshop and the tentative budget. These were the amounts that were estimated. The league is now saying that they feel it's going to be pretty close to revenue neutral because they're going to increase the pie that's distributed to all the cities and towns from 15% to 18%. So we're going to make up that cut that they were going to give us, is in theory. They can't guarantee it. They can't guarantee it's revenue neutral. I'm just mentioning it for the future as to why we need to keep those reserves intact until this all flushes out. They just adopted this last week when they adopted the budget. So this is what it was. They don't have any current estimates what it will be. They have no idea for sure.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Is there anybody else? No. Okay. Pat, I just want to thank you very much for all the work you've done with the budget, and I want to thank staff, John, everybody, Jean, everybody that worked on this, and also the members of the council, the time we took to work on this, and one of the things that I'm very proud of is that we were working on the compensation classification study for the past 2 years on it, and we were going to do something last year. If you remember that, John, we had plans of doing something in 2020. Remember, we were talking about it, but we were all so concerned with the COVID situation, Pat, that we didn't even make the attempt to give our employees an increase or put them at least close to that level that they need to be at. So I'm glad we did it this time, Pat, after 2 years and working on it. And at least we got something for the employees. And I know we're not there. I know that the employees probably some of them need to get. They would like to get to that midpoint, and I know that there's concerns with the PD and the fire department, and they've been talking with Mr. Kissinger and Mr. Thompson about this. Hopefully, down the road, Pat, we can sit down as a council in a study session and try to figure out how we can do something. I'm not talking about this in the very near future, but at least we need to start talking about it. And hopefully we can get our border open and include that sales tax bracket, that opportunity from residents from Sonora that purchase and buy here in Nogales, Arizona, that can help us in our revenues and also help us in the opportunity of balancing budgets in the future, not expecting a relief fund from the federal government to take us out or help us out. So with that, Pat, again, I want to thank you very much, and I want to thank the members of the council for the work, and I'm glad the employees are receiving some money after this COVID situation, which is not completely over, but at least with that, we have a balanced budget and an opportunity for the employees. So with that, we'll just vote on it, I guess. We have the motions on this. So all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. Thank you very much again. All right. Motion to adjourn. Second. Meeting is adjourned.